The Gospel of John, chapter 18. After Jesus finished his prayer, he left with the disciples and went across the Kidron Valley to a place where there was a garden. Judas, the traitor, knew where this place was, for Jesus hadn't gone there often with the disciples. The Pharisees, as the leading priests, had given Judas a large detachment for Roman soldiers and temple police to seize Jesus. Judas guided them to the garden, all of them carrying torches, the lanterns, and armed with the swords and the spears. Jesus, knowing full well what about to happen, went out to the garden entrance to meet them. Stepping forward, he asked, "Who are you looking for?" "Jesus of Nazareth," they replied. Now Judas, the traitor, was among them. He replied, "I am he." At the moment Jesus spoke the words, "I am he," the mob fell backward to the ground. So once more Jesus asked them, "Who are you looking for?" As they stood up, they answered, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus replied, "I told you that I am the one you're looking for. So if you want me, let this man go home." He said this to fulfill the prophecy and spoken, "Father, not one of those you have given me has been lost." Suddenly Peter took out his sword and struck the high priest's servant, slashing off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. Jesus ordered Peter, "Put your sword away. Do you really think I will avoid the suffering which my Father has assigned to me?" Then the soldier and their captain, along with the Jewish officers, seized Jesus and tied him up. They took him first to Annas, as he was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, the high priest that year. Caiaphas was the one who had persuaded the Jewish leaders that it would be better off to have one person die for the sake of the people. Peter and another disciple followed along behind them as they took Jesus into the courtyard of Annas' palace. Since the other disciple was well known to the high priest, he entered in, but Peter was left standing outside by the gate. When the other disciple came back out to the servant girl who was guarding the gate and convinced her to allow Peter inside, as he passed inside, the young servant girl guarding the gate took a look at Peter and said to him, "Aren't you one of the disciples?" He denied it, said, "No, I'm not." Now, because it was cold, the soldiers and guards made a charcoal fire and were standing around it to keep warm, so Peter huddled there with them around the fire. The high priest interrogated Jesus concerning the disciples and the teachings. Jesus answered Ananias' questions by saying, "I've said nothing in secret. At all times, I've taught openly and publicly in the synagogue, in the temple courts, and wherever the people assemble. Why would you ask me for evidence to condemn me? Others who have heard what I taught, then they can tell you." So then one of the guards standing near Jesus punched him in the face with his face and said, "How dare you answer the high priest like that?" Jesus replied, "If my words are evil, then prove it. But if I haven't broken any laws, then why would you hate me?" Then Annas sent Jesus still tied up across the way to the high priest Caiaphas. Meanwhile, Peter was still standing in the courtyard by the fire. And one of the guards standing there said to him, "Aren't you one of his disciples?" "I know you are." Peter swore and said, "I'm not a disciple." But one of the servants of the high priest, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, looked at him and said, "Wait, did not I see you out there in the garden with Jesus? Then Peter denied it a third time. They said, no. And that very same moment, a rooster crowed nearby. Before dawn, they took Jesus from his trial before Caiaphas to the Roman governor's palace. Now, the Jews refused to go into the Roman governor's residence to avoid ceremonial defilement before eating the Passover meal. So Pilate came outside, where the widow didn't ask him pointedly, ask them pointedly, tell me, what exactly is the accusation that you bring against this man? What has he done? They answered, we won't be coming here to hand over this criminal to you if you weren't guilty for some wrongdoing. Pilate said, very well, then you take him yourselves and go pass judgment on him according to your Jewish laws. But the Jewish leader complained and said, we don't have legal authority to put anyone to death. You should have him crucified. This was to fulfill the words of Jesus when he predicted the manner of death that would die. Upon hearing this, Pilate went back inside his palace and summoned Jesus, looking him over. Pilate asked him, are you really the king of the Jews? Jesus replied, are you asking because you really want to know, or are you only asking this because others have said about me? Pilate responded, only a Jew would care about this. Do I look like a Jew? It's your own people and your religious leaders have handed you over to me. So tell me, Jesus, what have you done wrong? Jesus looked at Pilate and said, the royal power of my kingdom realm does not come from this world. If it did, then my followers would be fighting to the end to defend me from the Jewish leaders. My kingdom realm authority is not from this realm. Then Pilate responded, oh, so then you are the king? You are right, Jesus said. I was born a king, and I come into this world to prove what the truth really is. And everyone who loves the truth will receive my words. Pilate looked at Jesus said, what is truth? As the silence filled the room, Pilate went back out towards the Jewish leaders who were waiting and said to them, he is not guilty. I could not even find one fault with him. Now, you do know we have a custom that release one prisoner every year in the Passover. Shall release your king, the king of the Jews? They shouted out over and over, no, not him. Give us Barabbas. Now, Barabbas was a robber and a troublemaker.